I thought that the way in which John Hume approached politics, and he always had an all-island mindset, I thought that was very interesting and inspiring, and I thought it was a great pity that it wasn't a bit more widely known. So I suppose a combination of all those factors, I started to work on full-scale film on him. But as I got into it, people like Tip O'Neill, I found political figures like him, like Charlie Doherty, the congressman from Philly, who took such risks. I found that their stories were really intriguing, and again, really unknown. So the idea of making a film that would pull it all together some way was a challenge I wanted to undertake. What was also important to me was to try to delve into the whole diplomatic history. There's quite a few diplomatic files and reports feature in the film, and that's not history that often gets widely written. You know, we know the political figures, but I think in particular people like Michael Lillis and Sean Donlan, who feature a lot in the film, just because they are officials, their role isn't so widely known. So, but when you talk to them, I mean, the interviews I did with them were quite extensive, and yeah, I think it's just a matter of getting the right people, learning from them, writing, and then honing your ideas, and then when you get into the edit, working hard at making this whole mass of material and interesting perspectives and so on, make it into a narrative that flows. And that can be a challenge, especially when there's dozens of people involved and a lot of archive and so on. So it's plenty of work. Well, one of the questions I posed to George Mitchell in the press conference was regarding the ongoing, how did he see the ongoing relationship between Ireland and America, because we have a very dysfunctional United States Congress and the White House. Don't stab me. It's really bad, and it would be very hard for a John Hume figure to go to Washington and to get something done. I mean, we do have the residues of it. You saw the 2016 St. Patrick's Day glimpses of things in New York and in Washington, but that's because of the work that happened in the 1980s. You couldn't possibly undertake to have anything sustained or anything serious on the Irish question today. It's just, and yet, the fact that, I remember I screened this film in the United States Congress last September, and I was hosted by a Republican congressman and a Democrat congressman. I kind of joked at the time, this is the only modicum of bipartisanship that in the United States Congress. And, well, it's a joke, but it's semi-serious, that it really, the place is in free fall. And you do have, because of this history, because of the 80s, because of Tip O'Neill and Ronald Reagan's cooperation as well, you do have the possibility to put Ireland on the agenda, but in terms of, last I checked, there's no US even ambassador in Dublin, never mind a special envoy up north. And without getting too policy wonkish on you, but there is, the reason that the British government survives at all is because the DUP, the Democratic Unionist Party, is propping it up. And that means that they are the de facto controllers of anything to do with Northern Ireland. And that's particularly poisonous for the Good Friday Agreement. It's a great, I would suggest, betrayal on the part of the Conservative Party in Britain that they let that happen. No. Yeah, I think there's an argument to say that without the SDLP forming when it did in 1970, and without the stunning array of talent that came through in that period, there's an argument to say that Northern Ireland could have descended into civil war. I think certain pressure points like 1981, the period you mentioned in 72, 81, there are times when it really was risk of out-and-out war. The collapse of Sunningdale, which I included here, the Sunningdale executive was a power-sharing executive that lasted 5 months, and Hume was Minister for Commerce. He was part of that executive, and it collapsed And I think that's one of the great missed opportunities in Irish history. People who are antagonistic to what I've just said, that sentence I just said, would be apt to tell you about details, small details that were absent then and present in the Good Friday Agreement, and I accept that. But what the overarching picture here is that a power sharing method of government was established, and it did work until it was pulled down by a combination of the Loyalist strike and Loyalist thuggery and the IRA's campaign.